What's the most used man-made material on Earth? I'll give you the answer. Concrete. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. Have you ever stopped to think about the sidewalks, driveways, bridges, or the buildings around you? They're all made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore a unique concrete-related topic with the help of industry professionals shaping the trade's future. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even proponents of competing materials. We'll get their views on concrete and their visions for its future. So get ready to mix things up with Concrete Logic, where we turn the spotlight on the material that's everywhere but often overlooked. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. And now, here's your host, Seth Tandit.
And welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. And today I have a new guest, Josh Agee. He is the Concrete Quality Assurance Manager for F.A. Wilhelm Construction. He can tell us a little bit about himself here in a minute. But today we're going to talk about, this is actually a guest request. I got an email from somebody wanting to talk about this. So you get a break report back and it's low. Now what? That's what we're going to talk about today. So when you get a low cylinder break on a concrete project, we're going to talk about what you do, how you troubleshoot it. Is it the mix? Is it the placement? Is it how the test was performed or how the samples were taken? It's a fun subject for concrete folks. But before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody how you can support the podcast. So if you go to concretelogicpodcast.com, you will go at the top of the page, and this is what someone did to send me a topic suggestion, is if you go to concretelogicpodcast.com, there's and I'm going to it now so I can talk to you while I'm doing it. Up at the top, there's a menu. It says contact. If you click on that, a window will pop up and it's like sending me an email. So that's one way you can get a hold of me. And then the second way is on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little microphone symbol. If you click on that, that's like leaving me a voicemail. And what we're looking for is topic or guest suggestions. Just reach out, tell me what you want to hear. Always like to hear from folks that are following along, and we can do the topics or the guests that you want to hear from. That's what that is, one way to support the podcast. The second way is on the same homepage, there's a donate button. And the idea there is if you get some value out of the podcast, you can give some value back. I need to thank a couple folks for donating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh Bong donated to the show. So I want to thank Josh. Josh has been a long-time supporter of the podcast. He's also a member of the Concrete Academy, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. We also got a donation from Tom Cummings. He's also been a long-time supporter of the podcast. So I want to thank Tom and thank Josh. Thank you very much for your donation. It's greatly appreciated. So if you want to hear your name on the podcast, donate. I'll say your name out there and thank you as well. So those are the two ways to support the podcast. And then the third way, if you enjoyed this, this kind of format, we're doing the same thing on the Concrete Logic Academy. You can jump on there, concretelogicacademy.com, and you can watch a video or listen to the podcast. And then you take a quiz, and typically they're 10 questions long, multiple choice, and quiz you on what the episode was about to make sure you're listening and absorbing what we're discussing. And once you finish that, we can give you a professional development hour or CEU, whatever you need, especially for your professional engineers out there. So check that out as well. Okay. With that, let's get into the topic at hand. Josh, you were telling me this topic's hitting home pretty close. I guess you're dealing with this right now. So you got your break. So what do we do from here?
Well, we start investigating, right? You're a police detective. You got to figure out why, what happened, who, and then at the end of the day, who pays for it, right? first thing we started with the ready mix company, right? Let's look at batch weights. Let's look at tickets. Let's look at anything out of the ordinary on that day, right? Did the driver add a bunch of water? What happened? Ready mix comes back and says, "Hey man, everything looks great on our end. Nothing weird on the batch ticket. Everything's good. I don't know why it's doing that. It should be fine." Okay. What next, right? Testing company. Hey, how are the cylinders made? How are they cured? If it's 80 degrees outside, it's different than if it's 20 degrees outside. So we have to evaluate where were the cylinders stored on site and kind of dig in that way. And then ultimately, it's up to the engineer. ACI recommends evaluating the structure to determine if the strength that we have is acceptable. And if not, then we go further. Swiss hammer, Windsor probe, those kind of tests. And then ultimately you got to go get your cores and poke holes in the building and take those core samples and test those to see what they break at. And hopefully they come back strong enough for the engineer to give you the thumbs up and you keep moving. Because by the time all that's happened, unless somebody gave you a stop work order, there's another 2 or 3 floors stacked on top of these columns or whatever it is. So quick overview, that's the whole picture, right? And then you got to dive in a little deeper on each step.
Yeah. So let's talk about the ideal way, and we'll kind of, if you don't, I know you can only share so much, but try to figure out what went wrong. And yeah, I think at least you hit this at least once a job. It seems like there's at least one low break that everybody's got to get knots in their stomach about and try to figure things out. So we were talking a little bit before we hit record was, it starts at that pre-pour meeting, who's in the room? Like, did we have the right folks in the room and talking about, this is when we're pouring concrete the day of, these are the steps and these are the things that should be going on, and everybody kind of nods their head. So you were sharing with me, you guys do that as every day or for each
every
project
time.
and every time.
Yeah.
But you made a great point. What are things that need to be said or done in the pre-pour meeting so we avoid or at least know what we're all responsible for doing if there is a low break?
Yeah. So my standard questions, along with, how often are we testing? Is it every 50 or every 100 cubic yards, right? All that sort of thing. Where are we storing the cylinders? That's my question. Sometimes the testing company looks at me and says, I don't know, right? All right, we'll help you. We'll figure it out together. Other times they come out and say, oh, we're going to bring a cure box to the site and we're going to put it over there next to the trailer. Perfect. Sounds great. But kind of like what we were talking about before you hit record was the people in the pre-pour meeting are not always the same people out in the field come day of the pour, right? They show up, they don't know where the cure box is, that it's over there by the trailer. We're pouring on the other side of the building, so they just shove them off behind the curb over there on the other side of the building. That guy in the field needs to know that there's a cure box plugged in, temperature controlled, waiting for you. Just, you got to walk a little bit, So you talk about it with the management team in the meeting, but you got to communicate back down the chain to the people in the field, doing the work.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, and do you in your pre-pour meetings, do you guys talk about when there's a low break and what that procedure looks like? Or do we all kind of go in there with rosy eyes and we all go, that ain't going to happen on this job because we're doing all the right things on this one?
We'll cross that bridge when we get there,
That's right.
But I can tell you, moving forward, we're going to talk about it a little more in depth. If it comes back low at 28, is 56 days still considered acceptable, right? Then what? We're gonna dig in a little more in the future. But in the past, no, we go in there just kind of assuming everything's going to be good, maybe that's our mistake. Maybe it's, lessons learned or whatever, but we will change our ways moving forward for sure.
Well, I think you're better than 90% of the folks. I mean, most folks don't even have the pre-pour meeting. They'll, that's just not, I don't think it's standard practice for majority of the jobs out there. I think if they are done, and I'm sure there's a lot of people yelling at me right now, say, yeah, we do it. Yeah, you do it just to do it. You go through the motion of doing it, but you don't take the time. I've sat through 3-hour pre-pour meetings, and
Me too.
they're they can be boring, they can be dense, they can make you fall asleep, but they're very important, and you don't realize how important they are till something hits the fan, and
Yep.
and you get a low break, and you're like, oh, here we go, and yeah. So yeah, having the right people in the room, I think it sounds easy to do, but it's really hard. It's really hard to get. You got to get it scheduled, and you got to go, okay, these are the folks that you want in the room. So you want, obviously, the concrete supplier, the structural engineer, your guys that are going to be out there in the field, your foreman, superintendent, project managers. But I think, like you said, we kind of overlooked the third party guy. We're looking, hey, who's the head cheese over at the third party company? That makes us all feel good that he's coming in and promising us the world.
Yeah.
The guy that we actually need in the room is the guy that's going to be taking the samples, and I think that would not only, like you said, he knows the logistics of what's going on the job site, which is very important, but also you're starting to build that rapport with him, because we like to beat up on the third party guys when it comes to the cylinders. And I see the photos and the post on LinkedIn all the time. And you're like, look at this guy. This guy's an idiot. Look what he's doing. He's stacking cores or samples in the cure box and doing all kinds of silly stuff. We see it all the time, but that just, just not training these guys the right way, or they don't understand how important their job is.
Yeah. And let me back up for just a little bit. So like we talked about before, I did my time. Most of us in the concrete industry either came up through the trades, right? You were in the field, finisher, laborer, whatever, or you started off testing concrete, right? And I did my time. I was in the field. I was the guy making the cylinders. So I feel like I could talk about them a little bit, because that's me, And yeah, when I was the guy in the field making the cylinders, I was not the guy in the meetings.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's helpful, or at least the guy in the meeting to have a follow up, with the guys that are going to be in the field, right? Hey, this is what we talked about. Here's my notes, whatever the case may be, to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that's worth highlighting numerous times. About having that guy in the meeting, the actual one that's taking the samples. All right. So we talked about, you gave an overview of the entire process. And we just talked about the pre-pour meeting. And let's go back to trying to investigate a low break and where it stems from. So you checked with the producer, you checked with the third party guy, and of course everybody says, yeah, it wasn't me. So what do you?
Everybody's pointing fingers.
Yeah, it's you. You messed up. The concrete contractor messed up, right?
Yeah, except we weren't even there. We were out on the deck pouring, and you were over here at the truck testing. But yeah, it's always our fault. So we go in with some non-destructive testing, to try to see if that helps our case at all. Do some Swiss hammer, and then ultimately we have to get the core machine out there and take cores. So we like to have a separate third party actually test those cores, so it's a true independent, unbiased opinion, right? We don't want the people that took the cylinders and said they're low to then take the cores and say, yep, these are low too. if that's the case, we want a separate independent to give us unbiased, right? So we get somebody out there with a core machine and take our samples from the area in question. And then I stand there and watch as the core comes out of the concrete to ensure that it is handled per the ASTM, right? Because if you don't follow the ASTM on any of it, it doesn't matter, essentially. So we spend our time watching, and they take the cores and they let them get a little bit of moisture conditioning, and they put them in a Ziploc bag or a cylinder mold or something to maintain that moisture condition. And they transport it back to their lab. I usually go back when it's break day and they go to break the cores. I check and make sure that they're capped properly, and then they go and break them, and I'm standing right there when it breaks, and I can look at the core that's broken and see if there's any pop out of the aggregate or if the aggregate's sheared. Because that tells you a lot too, right? If the aggregate's popping out, then you don't have a good bond between your paste and your ag. So
Yeah.
that could be a problem with the mix itself. If the ag is shearing, you have that good bond, and your core breaks well, above strength or the 85%, then to me, that shows me the concrete in the building is sufficient. And we have to get that report and send it to the engineer and make sure everybody is in agreement that the concrete in the building is structurally adequate.
Yeah. Because that's the most important, is the in-place concrete is performing, not necessarily the cylinder itself.
Exactly. Yeah, the cylinders don't matter if the building is good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So from that point, so I think you kind of went back down both paths there with your answer. So that if it's good, it's good. We move on, right? And now if we find out that we have bad concrete in our in-place concrete, well, it's got to come out, right?
Not all the time.
No.
But sometimes it depends on the type of concrete it is, right? If it's a vertical element, a column, and now we've spent 28 days waiting on a break result, 56 days waiting on a break result, and now another week or so getting the core and getting it tested. Well, now you've got, depending on the height of your building, right? You've got 2, 3, 4 more floors stacked on top of it. So you really can't tear it out with ease anyway, right? So sometimes you have to get a carbon fiber wrap around your column or something.
Ooh, yeah.
But if it's a knee wall or a curb or a sidewalk or whatever, and it has that low break, yes, absolutely, it's easier and usually cheaper to just tear it out and start over.
Yeah. Whew. Hope we're not doing all this work for a curb. So, how many times do you think you've had to do this in your career so far?
Man, coring and all that to that extent.
Yeah.
I would not say once a year.
Yeah.
So I've been in the industry. Yeah, I've been in probably, what did we talk about? 15, 16, 17 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Right.
I've probably done it maybe 10 times to that extent, or less. But we have we've had to do the interim, right? The Swiss hammer, the Windsor probe, the evaluation, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually those help you out, showing that the in place is with a non-destructive test that it's up to strength.
Right.
So, yeah.
Or the rolling average, the statistical outlier of the one test report on Tuesday that was bad, but Monday and Wednesday was good. The rolling average says everything's good. We're within that 500 PSI range. And a lot of times that just makes the issue go away as well.
Yeah. So when you come to that low break and you you got to respond to the low break, right? When it's because it's sent out to everybody in that letter, is that when you're outlining what the plan is? Is that what that letter is saying? Is this is what we're saying, or is a letter sent only when those evaluations are done, and then you're responding with, hey, here's the evidence, we're good, or no, we're not good, and these are what we are proposing to fix the problem.
Yeah, it depends on the relationships with everybody on the team, right? Certain structural engineers we work with all the time, and they know us and we know them, and we'll skip a couple steps to help the process along, and we'll just go ahead and start Swiss hammers, potentially coring, whatever. And then other times we're not going to do anything without direction, so we'll send the email or the letter of, we recognize that there is a low break. We'll give some data. We spoke with the ready mix company. Here's all the batch weights for the trucks. They think everything's good. How do you want us to proceed? So it just depends, really. But we do own a Swiss hammer, and I go out there and do it myself, even if it's not official. I'll go test it myself just so I can sleep at night.
Uh,
I get twitchy when I don't know if the concrete's good or not. And if I prove to myself that it's okay.
Yeah, and that way, when you're, like you said, when you're going through this process, it takes time, so you can't just stop, right? You got to figure out, hey, do I have a big problem, or am I confident enough to keep stacking floors on top of, work that is being questioned? So there's a big risk there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, knowing how to do some of those non-destructive tests, like you were saying, yourself, gives you that confidence that, hey, we don't have a problem. Let's keep going, and we'll go through the steps to prove what our in-place concrete is, how it's performing. So, but we got a few minutes, Josh. I think what we could do is let's talk about some of the things that we like to, or don't like to see as far as how cylinders are, one, the samples taken, and two, how they're handled. So what are since you've been on that side of the fence, what are some of the common offensives that we see out there that we can keep our eye out for?
Yeah. Well, get your sample in the middle of the truck. The middle third is the best.
And why is that? Let's explain why that is. Why is that?
Well, if you've ever watched concrete come out of the chute, the very first thing that comes down is a whole bunch of rocks, right? That's not a very thorough mix. It's not representative of the whole batch. And then the tail end of it, once the whole truck is offloaded, the tail end is usually a bunch of water. So that's not a good representation either, right? I want a good mix, a good sample that's representative of that mix design. So let's get it out in the middle where we've had good steady flow, and we get a good aggregate to paste, ratio to what it's designed to be.
And your guys that are on the chute or on the bucket, should be trained to know that, so they can say, hey, third party guy, wait.
Yep. Absolutely.
Before you take, yeah. You don't have to get the first drips that come out of the truck. It's okay.
Right.
You can wait a little
just
bit.
Hang out for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What's another offense?
Just the care of the cylinders themselves, right? The initial, you've rotted the cylinders, you've consolidated them. Hopefully you put a lid on them. I've seen some guys that don't put lids on, and you want a lid on it to keep the moisture in. You don't want it all evaporating out, because that's not representative either. So you put the lid on it, and then treat it like a newborn baby. Don't throw your cylinders in your wheelbarrow and push them across the job site when you just made them. So they got to be handled with care. Every single one of them should say handle with care on the side, because the aggregate can settle, right? If it's in the wheelbarrow shaking around across the job site, that aggregate is now settling, and it's not going to be a good representation of the mix.
Yeah.
So handle them with care.
When
Store them. Yeah.
Can you move them? When is a good when can you move them? So you take your cylinder, you put the cap on it, you put it down. When can you move it?
Immediately, as soon as possible, take it to its initial curing location.
Right.
whether that's the cure box that's plugged in at the job trailer or in the job trailer, right? Because the cylinders are like people. They want 60 to 80 degrees, right? So I'm pretty comfortable around 70 degrees in the office, Fahrenheit, we're talking. Cylinders are like that too. They want to be between 60 to 80. Unless it's a high strength mix, then it's a 68 to 78 window. So take it and immediately put it in that environment, whatever it is, and then leave them. Don't mess with them. Leave them for 24 to 48 hours. So come back to the job the next day and pick them up. And then again, handle with care. I've seen cylinders picked up the next day that then got chucked in the back of a pickup truck like it was loading firewood. That's not what we're doing, right? So handle with care through the whole process is probably the biggest thing that I see.
Yeah. Just trying to think. No other offenses, just those couple, or
There's probably more.
yeah.
Uh,
I think you covered like the majority of them. Yeah.
Labeling's a big one. If it's a job site that's placing multiple different mix designs,
Yeah.
you have a mix that's placed at 7 a.m. Then you have another mix that's placed at 11 a.m. and you put them all in the same cure box. Make sure they're labeled correctly, so everybody knows what they are. And then when the report comes back, you don't have the results flip-flopped.
Yeah.
I have seen that. I assume that's what happened. I can't prove it, but I think I have seen that before.
Yeah. That sounds easy to do if you're pouring multiple mixes at the same time. And, they only send one person out there to run around and take it from different locations on the job site. And if it's a larger job, that's tough to do. Well, good. I think that's a good start on beating that subject up today. I know it's a favorite of, not a favorite. Is it a favorite or not a favorite? I don't know how to say that. It's
one we all deal with. Yeah.
There you go. It's a common occurrence. And I'm sorry you're going through it right now, Josh. That stinks, man.
Yeah.
If folks want to reach out to you and get more of your perspective, since you've been on both sides, you worked for a testing agency and now you're working for a concrete contractor. I mean, this is a guy that knows both sides. He'd be a good guy to talk to. How would folks reach out to you, Josh?
Really, email or LinkedIn. So Josh Agee on LinkedIn, or my email is joshagee@fawilhelm.com. Pretty good at checking emails and LinkedIn. I'm on there quite a bit, so reach out to me there.
Yeah, that sounds great. Josh, thanks for coming on the show today. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
folks,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, man. And folks, until next time, let's keep it concrete.